Hey everybody, it's Eric. So I wanted to go through styled components today and kind of show you how to use it as well as why I use it for my React projects. So in case you don't know, styled components is basically a better way to do CSS inside of React. So normally what you do with out-of-the-box React is if you wanted to get CSS into your application, some kind of styling, then you'd import a style sheet. So let's say we have app.css. And if we add that inside another file over here, then what that's going to do is it's going to bring in all these styles right here and have those be usable inside this component right here. Now that works okay, but you have to have this whole separate style sheet, and it can get pretty long if you're putting in a whole bunch of different styles here, and there's not really any easy way to pass in variables here. So if I wanted to have a dynamic background color, then it's a little bit harder to do it. Another way you can do it is just by passing in the style prop. So let's say we have this div right here and we want to add a style. So we'd make a JavaScript object, but the problem with these is you can't use like normal CSS syntax. For example, if I wanted to do like margin top 20 pixels, it basically doesn't work because this is a JavaScript object. And so you have to write it in JavaScript object syntax. So instead of this, you do margin top, and then you wrap this in quotes. And I mean, that works, but it's just kind of like a cumbersome way to write CSS. And if you're bringing in like styles from another project and they're just written in normal CSS, then you have to like convert them all into this weird JavaScript object syntax. And it just never really worked for me. I never liked doing it that way. So style components basically solves all those problems at once. So with style components, you write it like this. So you basically just write normal CSS inside your styled component, and then you can assign it to a variable, and then you can import that variable in anywhere you want. So you can basically make these reusable styled components that you can use anywhere in your app. So it's really nice to use, and I'm going to kind of show you. I'm going to kind of walk you through how to do it. So I'm going to be using this component that I built for a project I did recently. So this is like a waiting time. This is like a waiting time rater. So basically, like if you're waiting somewhere and you want to like tell them how long you waited, like you'd say green for 0, maybe yellow for 90 minutes, 120 minutes, all the way up to like 300 minutes or more. So I wanted like a nice visual indicator so they can rate their experience, and basically styled components is the easiest way I found to do that. Basically all you need to do to get started is npm install styled components, style-components. So I've got that installed already as well. So I'm just going to start the development environment now with npm start. Okay, development server is up. And we don't have anything in here. I basically removed everything, so I'm just going to put a hello world in here. And so to use styled components inside of your app, basically you want to import styled from styled components. And then what you want to do is create a new variable with const. Let's say we want to make a container for this. So like put some padding around this hello world and like put it in the center. So let's say constant container is equal to, and here's the syntax here. It's basically styled dot whatever you want the HTML entity to be. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be swapping out this container. We're going to be swapping out this div for this container. All it's going to be is just a div with a few styles added to it. That's basically all a styled component is. So we'll just say style.div. And then you put 2 backticks here, and then in between the backticks you can write whatever kind of CSS you want. It's just normal CSS. So let's say we want padding 40 pixels around the entire page, and then text align center. Now I have the syntax highlighting working right here. If you just use style components for the first time, you're not going to have any nice highlighting like this, and that's pretty nice to have. So if you're using VS Code, you can use styled components VS Code styled components. Just search for styled components in the marketplace and install this one right here. So if you want to see how it looks like before, it's just like all one color, no highlighting at all. So that's nice to have. So I always enable that for my projects. Okay, anyway, but we got this container right here. Now we're not seeing any difference right here because we got to change this div into the container. Save that. And now we have padding of 40 pixels around the page and the text is centered. So that's your first styled component. It's pretty easy to make, but it can be used for a lot more. So I'm going to kind of go through that. All right, so I want to build these buttons that you can click on, the colored buttons that you can rate how long it took. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy in all these times that I have, just so I don't have to type it out. So I got this array of different times, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop over each of these using map and then display a radio button for each of these, so they can basically click on one of the radio buttons and input their time. So I'm going to do options.map, grab each option, and then return, let's say, an input with the type of radio and the name of time. Close that. Okay, we have 10 buttons, and I want to put a wrapper around it so I can make it a flex box and make all of these inline. So what I'm going to do is make a new, let's say, rating component. So let's say constant rating equal to styled.div. We'll do another div, and this is only going to be display flex, and then we'll just add this one right here, rating. Okay, so wrap that. And then what I want to do with these, I don't just want to have these little tiny inputs here. I want to kind of have the buttons around them, the colored buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap these radio buttons with a label. And then I'm just going to make the label a styled component, and then kind of make the label bigger and hide the radio buttons. So by putting the label around the radio buttons, whenever they click on the label, it'll activate the radio button. So let's create a new styled component called constant rating color. Make that a styled label. And then for the CSS, I'm just going to paste this in here so I don't waste your time. Copy all this. And these are just basic styles to make it look good. But this background color, I'll get to later how to do. But for now, I'm just going to make the background color a shade of yellow. I'm going to use HSL, let's say 50, 75%, 50%. If you haven't used HSL before, it stands for hue, saturation, lightness, I think. It's just another way to write colors inside CSS. Save that. Nothing's changed yet because these are still labels and not rating colors. So change that to rating color. Give it a save. And we now have 10 yellow buttons. That's nice, but it would be better if they were colored. But we'll get to that. So another nice feature of styled components is you can kind of embed components inside other components, or you can embed styles inside of other styled components. So maybe I don't want to make this input a styled component because I'm really not going to use it that much. I basically just want to put one style into this input. What you can do is you can put other elements inside here. So like if you put input in here and then put that inside curly brackets, now you can put any styles in here, and any inputs inside rating color will have these styles. So I want these radio buttons to be hidden. So let's say visibility hidden. Save that, and these are now all hidden. So that's a really nice feature to have. And if you've ever used SCSS before, like SAS before. It's kind of similar to that in that you can put anything inside of here. Like if you want to embed styles into here too, maybe like you want to have an input inside an input. That's a bad example, but you can keep like nesting these styles inside each other. And you can also put in different things, like if you want the first child, if you want to select only the first child of this, you can say and colon first child, put in styles for that. And there's a lot more options like that too. So you have a lot of flexibility over what kind of nested styles you want to have in here. So that's all just nice to know. It's pretty useful. I'm not going to use that though. I'm just going to hide this input inside here. So these all still work if you click on them. Here, let me just unhide these for a second. Okay, so radio buttons are getting clicked like they're supposed to. Gonna hide those again. And now we're gonna go over passing props into these buttons, passing props into styled components. Okay, so this is probably the most useful part of styled components, and that you can pass props into them. So here, I'm just gonna add value here because I forgot to put this here before. Let's say value is the current option. So whenever you click on it, it'll actually return like 90, 30, 0. I just forgot that before. But let's pass an option to here. So we want to change the colors for each of these. So I'm going to say color is equal to, and then we can pass whatever color we want in here. Now I want to pass in a hue to here. So basically with HSL, 0 is red and 100 is green. So basically I want to pass in a value from 0 to 100 here. And I'm going to do that with a little helper function that I wrote. I broke it for now, but I'll get back to it. So I'm just going to grab this little function, get color. So this is nothing really special. It's just like a little bit of math to turn these numbers into the correct percentage. So 300 should be red, 0 should be green. So this is basically just doing a bunch of math to change that. So I'm going to pass in get color and then pass in the value, so option, and then this function will return a color. Okay, so in order to use props inside a styled component, you want to use this syntax right here. So $ and then curly brackets. So that allows you to put like any kind of JavaScript in here. So I can put like 20 plus 10 inside here, save that, and it's now orange. So any JavaScript inside here works, but I'm going to pass in a prop here. So you want to get the props with this function right here. Let's say props, make it an arrow function, and then let's return props.color. See if that works. And yeah, we now have green all the way to red. So that's pretty useful. It's getting the props, it's getting the color that's passed in here, and it's returning it right here. If you wanted a little bit cleaner way to write this, I don't know if it's necessarily cleaner, but this is just how I like writing it. You can destructure colors from here with curly braces, or not colors, color. And then you don't have to write props.color, you can just write color. So that does exactly the same thing. That's just something that I like doing to make it cleaner. Okay, so that's pretty good. We have this done already. We can pass in different props as well. So whenever somebody clicks on this, I want it to like kind of highlight so they know that it's selected. So first off, we want to pass in a selected prop here. So it's either going to be true or false depending on if it's selected. So let's say selected is true if the current option, so if this number matches the selected one. But right now we don't have any way to get which one is selected. So let me set that up real quick. I'm going to delete this for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this useState hook in React. So useState, and I'm going to go down here and let's say constant, what should we call it? Let's say selected and set selected. and the default is going to be nothing is selected. So basically we're going to save whichever one is selected to state. And we're going to do that by going to this input and click and typing in on change, make a function, and then on change it's going to set selected to the current option. Now what we want to do is we want to check which one is selected. So like I was doing before, let's pass in the prop, and it's going to be true if this option is equal to the current selected one. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to make this brighter if it's currently selected. So I'll do the same thing again, curly braces. Let's get the props selected, making an arrow function. Now you can't really use if statements inside here, but you can use the ternary operator. So I can say selected, if selected is true, then we want to return, let's say 100% saturation, and if not, then 75%. Okay, so if I wrote that correctly, it should change to 100% saturation, become brighter if I click the right one. All right, and it's working. So that looks pretty nice right there. We got that done, and I guess all that's left is just like display like which one is currently selected. So I'm just gonna say selected down here, and then it's gonna return whichever one we have, 150, 180. All right, that works good. All right, so that's really useful to have. Like for example, if you tried to write this with normal CSS, like the style sheet that I showed before, here, then you'd have to write like a separate class for every single one, and it would just get really messy. Like we'd have one for the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. We'd have like 10 different classes. But with style components, we can just pass in a prop and get that done with just this dynamic little function that I wrote. So that's really useful to have. That's basically why style components is so useful. But style components is also useful because you can kind of like reuse the code. So let's say that I didn't just want to have this container for this component. Let's say I wanted to use the container all over the app, so we can just use it again and we don't have to type it out every single time, because that's what React is about. It's about reusing components so you don't have to repeat yourself with writing the same thing over and over again. So what I usually do to organize this is I just create a folder here called styled, and then I move all my styled components into here. So let's make container.js, and what you want to do is I'm just going to cut this into here. That's going to break for now. Export default container, and then we want to just import styled from styled components here. And then we'll be able to use this anywhere we want. So let's import that container from styled / container, and it works fine. Everything's good. And now we can just import this container anywhere we want, and that's really useful to have around. Now, not everything you need to put in a separate file. Like if you had a rating component, then you're probably not going to put the rating color component anywhere else. You're not really going to use it anywhere else besides like inside the rating component. So these you can kind of put together. Like if I like put this rating into its own component, then I would just put the rating color with it as well. I wouldn't make a whole separate file just for the rating color. Okay, that's pretty much it, but I wanted to show you a couple of extra small things that you can do with styled components. So you don't have to just do HTML elements like style label. If you wanted to like modify a React component or another component, what you would do is, let's say we want to make the rating color longer, but we don't want to get rid of this one. We just want to make an additional component that we can also use instead of these if we want. So what you would do in that case is, let's say const rating color long, and we'll make that a styled. Instead of putting a dot here, we're gonna put it in parentheses. So reading color in here, and then 2 backticks, and then you can make any modifications to this. So let's say like we'll make the height twice as long, 160 pixels, and then you would just use this instead. So reading color, and it's now twice as long. So you can do that with these React components as well. Okay, and another thing is you might not only want to use these props inside like a one-liner like this. You might want to have like a whole list of styles right here that only become true if one of your props is true. So let's say if selected is true, then we want to add a whole bunch of additional styles. So let's copy out this, and let's say we want to change the height to, let's kind of put this down here for now. So let's say we want to make the height twice as long, and we want to make the flex, we want to make it like 3 times bigger than everything else. So what you would do is you can't just put these in here and have it work correctly. You need a little bit extra from styled components to make it work correctly. So what you do is from styled components, styled is the default export, but you can also get the CSS export from it. So what you do with CSS is, if you want to have like multiple lines like hidden behind this prop right here, then we'd say, okay, if selected is true, then let's add CSS, and then you use 2 backticks here, and then put all this CSS in the middle into these 2 backticks. We can save that, and now it's working correctly. So whenever you click this, it gets 3 times as big and twice as long. Okay, so yeah, if you want to put multiple lines in here, you just got to use this little CSS right here. It's a little helper. So it's a little awkward, but that's the way you got to do it. And that's basically it. So I find style components really useful. I use it for just about all of my React projects, and it comes in really handy. So if you've learned something here, give the video a like, subscribe, or something like that. I'll probably be posting another video about styled components soon. There's a lot more you can do with it, like theming and more, but I'll touch that in another video. This video is getting a little bit long as it is. So yeah, I hope you liked the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.